All right, thank you for joining us today. I call the November 19, 2020 meeting of the Human Relations Commission to order. As we begin our first virtual meeting of the Commission, please remember to mute yourself if you are not speaking. When you do speak, please make sure you say your name to help Miranda with the note taking. To begin, I am Mator Alier, the chair of HRC. So I'll let you guys come in and say your name. Carol.
Carolyn Beechcraft.
Barry.
Barry Nelson, Commissioner.
Hamida.
Hamida Dakhani, Commissioner.
And I can't see the people on the phone. Or that's all I can see on my little screen. So please jump in and state your name.
Ahmed Shield, Commissioner.
Abdulwali.
Abdulwali Sharif, Human Commission HCR member.
Do we have others on the phone?
Leticia Hellerud, member.
Any more? Anyone? Okay, we have a quorum, and the next is approving the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Barry. So moved.
Can I get a second?
I second.
This is Carolyn, second.
Carol, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. The next item is to approve the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Carolyn.
Can I get a second?
Abdulwali, a second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. The next item is public comment. Those who wish to address the Human Relations Commission must use the sign-in sheets. The speakers must state their name and will be limited to 2 minutes comment. Comment should not contain profanity or personal attack. Staff, do we have anyone sign up for public comment?
There's no one in the chambers, but Jamie is on the PEXIT, and he would like to address the commission.
Welcome, Jamie.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm with the Fargo Fire Department, and I've been attending the commission meetings for most of the summer. The role that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to come and listen, find out areas where Fargo Fire can be a better service to the community. So I haven't taken an active role or needed to speak to you yet. Today, the reason I'm speaking to you is because we have an open hiring period, and we would really like your commission's help in seeking candidates to become the next Fargo firefighters. So your nieces and nephews and anyone that you can find to help come join our ranks. That's what I'm asking for today. I sent some application testing information, and I don't know if the commission has that yet. Otherwise, I can get that to you through planning. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them.
What are the requirements to be a firefighter?
Thank you very much. So the current requirements for the Fargo Fire Department is 18 years of age, valid driver's license. There is 60 college semester credits. That is, the 60 credits is not like, doesn't have to be fire specific. And then the testing process, there's a physical testing, there's a written test, psychological. The applications to get into the process are due by December 4th. And if the application packet will walk people through eligibility requirements and the steps. If anyone has questions, they can reach out. That my contact information should be on the information that you get there as well.
Thank you, Jamie. Members, do you guys have any questions for Jamie?
Jamie, do you have a specific ending time for this application process, or is it later?
Yeah, thank you, Barry. The applications are due December 4th. So, and it's, if you go to, if you visit www.fargofire.com, or the flyers that you should be getting will have like a little, one of those things on it, QR code. And then if you follow that link, it'll take you to the application.
Thank you.
Any other question for Jamie?
And this is Abdiwali. And once you sign up, how long do you have to be in? Is it like a contract? Is it like annually or 2 years? How long do you have to be on a firefighter?
Thank you very much. So what this is for a full-time position as Fargo firefighter. So it would be a full-time position. It would be, you'd be joining the Fargo Fire, all the benefits, the pension. So after 10 years of service, that's when you become fully vested in our pension. So I think, am I answering your question? It's a full-time employment position, and on the information I sent here, 2020 firefighter starting salary was $51,397 per year.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a follow-up question. I feel like what Abdiwali was asking is like the duration of the time. Is it like the military, you can sign up for like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, or something like that? I don't know if that was his question, but I feel like I want to know about that.
Perfect. So in the past, we've done the testing every 2 years, and we feel like we're missing, the reason I'm coming to the commission here is because we're not catching enough candidates. We're missing people, and we're trying to reach out and seek. When we were testing every other year, we're missing half of eligible graduates leaving school. We're going to be moving towards annual testing. So this list, anyone who gets through will be on for 1 year. On our hiring pool for a single year. And then if I think it looks like the news release said we're expecting 4 or 5 firefighters off this list. If things come up and there's retirements, that could expand. Once that year is up, we'll do another testing requirement, and I'm hoping that I continue to attend your meetings. I hope that I continue to build relationships, and that I'm more prepared to do the recruiting. We've recognized that if I look at the wall behind me here, traditionally we're not catching the entire community, is not in our ranks, and we view that as a weakness in our ability to serve. And so not only coming to your meetings and listening and figuring out how do we partner with the events that you're doing, especially post-COVID when we can partner with you better. We also want to start the process of getting as many people in our ranks. Yep. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. We just wanted to remind people if you could do a quick mic check. We are getting quite a bit of feedback, so please just do a quick check. Thank you so much. I do believe that everyone has perhaps asked their question, Chair.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you were doing a quick check with the mic, so I have to wait on that. Sorry about that. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, everyone, for the follow-up question. Now we're going to the old business statement on racial cabinets. Member Barry Nelson will start a discussion on the recognition of the history and existence of racial cabinets in Fargo. For context and for new members of the commission, a staff report on this topic from the August 2020 meeting is included in the package. Barry has also proposed a statement on the cabinets, which is also included in your package. Barry, would you like to start discussion?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate this opportunity. First of all, I want to acknowledge that a citizen came to us back in June with information that that in part of the history of our city, there have been racial covenants existing in our community, which, I'll be honest, was a total shock to me that this kind of thing existed in our community. We have heard about this occurring around the country, that it was a very insidious way to limit ownership and occupation of property that really grew out of the Jim Crow laws, and they were very prevalent within the southern states. But as we've come to learn, it was also very pervasive in northern communities as well as the Great Migration occurred. And so she brought this to our attention, that there was a neighborhood or piece of property in the Belmont neighborhood that in fact had a written covenant that in fact excluded people in the terms of people of color from occupying or owning property in that place. I appreciate the staff that has done research, City Attorney Eric Johnson, and I want to also appreciate Jenny Duval for bringing this to our attention and persisting in asking what our response would be to this information. And I just feel in finding that this kind of language and this kinds of covenants is against the law. It should have no impact, but I thought it was really important that we as a Human Relations Commission go on record to reflect the fact that this did exist. We have no idea whether or not it did cause harm, but one could assume it probably did. And I think so. I prepared a statement that I felt I would like to see go into the record and that we would vote on as a commission today. And this was put into the packet, but I think I'll read it for the broadcast today, and then that would be reflected. Yes.
Let me quickly stop you there. Can you all please mute yourself? Because we're hearing a lot of echoing in the background. Yeah, go ahead, Barry.
Oh, okay. So just continue, right? Okay. So the motion that I would bring before the commission is that it's rather long, but the Emancipation Proclamation of 1862 freed all the slaves on the North American continent. Yet many laws were passed in its place to keep the Black Americans suppressed, whether that was in voting or property rights. These became known as the Jim Crow laws and were most visible in the South. Less visible were covenants meant to keep Black Americans out of defined neighborhoods. These covenants were designed to exclude Black people from purchasing or even occupying properties in specific parts of the city. Recently, it became known that such covenants, or at least one such covenant, existed within the city of Fargo, which stated, "It is understood," this is quotation marks, "it is understood that this lot shall never be sold to or occupied by a colored person." It is understood that this covenant has no legal bearing currently. However, it's important that this part of Fargo's history be revealed and recognized. We may never know whether such a covenant caused hardship to an individual or family, but it's important that we own this part of our racist past and offer an apology for past and present wrongs. I think one thing I would add is I have learned that as much as this was dated in 1914, and we might look at this as really part of our history, but I think we need to recognize that this kind of impact continues to this day. I learned this from my friend Michelle Ridds with the High Plains Fair Housing, and I believe she has comments that she's going to be making today. But I offer this up as a motion to the commission.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. I'm going to open it up to all for discussion with the members here. I think it's a good start. We should be at the front lines and take those law out. So I thank you very much. I'll open it up to all of you. Any questions? Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Michelle Ridds with High Plains Fair Housing Center. Can I make a comment now, or is there a...
Yes, please.
Thank you. I made a prepared statement. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle, and I am the Executive Director of High Plains Fair Housing Center. We are a statewide organization whose mission is to strengthen communities and to ensure equal access to fair housing in the region through training, education, enforcement, and advocacy. Fair housing is a right that is protected by federal and state laws, and fair housing means that you may freely choose a place to live without regard to your race, color, religion, sex, national origin, or because you are disabled, have children in your family, or if you're on public assistance. I want to commend you for recognizing and addressing racial covenants as one of the many legacies of systemic racism in our city and in our country. In 1926, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld racial deed restrictions as legal. The restrictions were an enforceable contract, and a homeowner risked losing their property if they violated the covenants. Most racial covenants restricted the sale or rental of property to Asian Americans and Jews, as well as Blacks. Thankfully, in 1948, the Supreme Court reversed its decision and made enforcement of racial covenants illegal. But the decision did nothing to alter other structures of segregation. It remained perfectly legal for realtors and property owners to discriminate on the basis of race. For example, the discriminatory housing policy of redlining assigned grade levels and color codes to neighborhoods to indicate lenders' perceived credit risk based on neighborhood residents' race and ethnicity. Neighborhoods with a large share of Black families were typically redlined, which made it nearly impossible for them to qualify for a mortgage and to purchase their homes. The damage of years of racial covenants and discriminatory housing policies and practices took its toll on Black home ownership and the ability to build wealth. A recent study found that in the last 40 years, a typical home in a red line neighborhood gained 52% less in value than a green line neighborhood. Today, Black homeowners are 5 times as likely to own a home in a formerly red line neighborhood than a green line neighborhood, meaning that they are unable to build wealth at the same rate as their counterparts. Alarmingly, in the first quarter of 2020, according to the Census Bureau, nationwide, 44% of Black families own their home compared with 73% of white families. And in Minneapolis, the statistic is the worst in the nation, with just 25% of Black families owning a home compared with 76% of white families. The Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly referred to as the Fair Housing Act, has a dual purpose: to eliminate housing discrimination and to promote residential integration through affirmatively furthering fair housing. This dual purpose was put into place to undo the aforementioned federal, state, local discriminatory policies and practices that resulted in creating racially segregated and under-resourced communities. Unfortunately, in the last 3 months, while many Americans in Fargo and across the nation were demanding racial justice to end systemic racism, the administration rewrote 2 important aspects of the Fair Housing Act: the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule and the disparate impact rule, marking major steps backwards in the ongoing fight for fair housing. Among other things, the new affirmatively furthering fair housing rule redefines fair housing, taking out any mention of racial disparities and segregation, and eliminates the need for citizen engagement in federal funding. The new disparate impact rule, the rule that this very committee wrote to try to stop last year, now allows us discriminatory policies to remain in place if there is an economic reason to do so. So just as an aside, I urge this committee to reach out to the new administration to reverse these harmful rules. But in general, I just want to say thank you for addressing this issue. Again, thank you I've worked a little bit with Commissioner Nelson and Jeannie as well. That I appreciate, your statement or your discussion on the discriminatory racial covenant and your commitment to addressing systemic racism. And just to state that the fight for fair housing remains as important it is today as it was 100 years ago. So thank you for letting me interject.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Any comments?
This is Abdiwali. And Michelle, what is the rate in North Dakota or Fargo, like in African American who owns homes in Fargo?
I don't have that data, but because I just pulled this together rather quickly this morning, but I will find that out for you and I think we can very easily find that out.
I have a question. In the materials that I read, the lawyer's background, it said that while there may be more than what the citizen brought forward, that the title companies often delete it. Is that correct? They know it's unenforceable, so they don't put it in the title as it's transferred? Did I understand that right?
Barry, I can take that one. This is Karen, if you'd like me to. So it still stays in the title, to my understanding in my conversation with Eric, but they may or may not necessarily note it in a title opinion or a title report. So that's sort of the distinction.
So in other words, there may be many more that we don't know about. Is that correct?
When I had the conversation with the city attorney, at least in Fargo, his knowledge was this particular subdivision. And I do believe that was his understanding of the extent for at least the Fargo area.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Again, try to mute yourself. I think Shirley was muted. So I think you guys can unmute her and then she can take control over her device. There. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve this statement as proposed by Member Nelson?
I so move, Carolyn.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposing the same sign? Motion carried. Our next item on the agenda is MLK Day planning updates. I will turn this agenda item over to planning staff, who will provide an update on MLK Day Junior event planning.
Thank you, Chair. So as you may know, we have contracted with Reach Partners, who has done some event organizing for this event before. And what they've spent the last few weeks doing is speaking to some of the previous volunteers and organizers for the event and trying to get some feedback on them about how we could have a meaningful, if virtual, event in January. So we had a call last week where we talked about some of those findings and had some kind of initial brainstorming sessions about some ideas. And so we also have a follow-up call tomorrow. So we just know it's been a little bit since we've reported back to you on this item. So we wanted to let you know that we're making progress. And hopefully within the next few weeks, we can get some, great ideas together about what that's going to look like.
Thank you. Do you have any idea when we open up the nomination application?
We'll have more information about that after our call tomorrow. That's sort of one of our topics of discussion.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Our next item here is an update from HRC Work Plan Groups. Since the last meeting, staff have connected individual commission members based on their interest in the HRC 2020 work plan. As a commission, we have formed three work plan groups. We ask each group to have a virtual meetings. So group one, Carol and Cody. Have you guys met?
This is Carolyn. Is Cody on the call?
He is not.
Okay. Well, I confess that we have not, but we will have a report for you next meeting.
Okay. Group two, Letitia, Abduwali, and Hamid. Have you guys had a chance to meet at all?
We have not.
Okay.
This is Letitia.
And group three is Amita, Barry, and Shirley. Have you guys had a chance to meet?
We tried. But no.
Okay. All right. Let's try to have those meetings going before our next meeting. Yep. So let's see what we can get there for. And our next item here is the still HRC meeting frequency and structure. At our last meeting on October 15, we were going to engage in a discussion about the next step for the meeting frequency and the structure topics. Due to time constraint, we tabled that discussion to this meeting. I will now turn it over to the staff, who will lead us through a presentation and discussion about the options.
Great, thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm not used to, my mic is usually much closer. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So yeah, as Chair earlier was talking about, back in September, this work group was created as a way to strategize about the ideal frequency and format of the meetings. And the reason that we started thinking about this is after the HRC formally approved its work plan earlier this year, after we came back from our pandemic break. And so we are trying to find ways to help the HRC to focus its attention and efforts across these 3 goals and the 4 strategies that are in the work plan. And we know that you are also interested in working and achieving this work. But as we just heard in those little updates about the work plan groups, it can be really challenging to find the time, even in groups of 3 or 4 people, to meet in order to sort of move that work forward. And so staff and the executive committee, in recognizing these challenges, sort of started having these ideas about how we could assist the HRC to carry out this work. So also, as it sort of talks about in the memo that's in the staff, in the packet, we know that sitting on a dais is not necessarily the ideal environment for carrying out this work, and certainly not to get to know each other as commission members as well. So we also know that people are very busy. They wear many hats in their personal and professional lives. And so in many cases, people's additional time is pretty limited. So we still wanted to find a way to help the commission to find a way where it can carry out its work that it so eagerly wants to do, while at the same time allowing the busy commissioners the chance to still participate and to feel like their service is valued and meaningful here. So just a quick note that there is a memo here in the staff packet on the 9th page that just lays out sort of what we've done so far, and then does have some from the last meeting's packet, the summary of the survey responses. So that's what I'm going to talk a little bit here in the first few slides. So as you may remember, we met in September, and then we sort of had a facilitation with the work group. And we also sent out these questions to as a survey via email. And so as part of that, we analyzed the responses. And I think for me, 3 themes really stood out. So I'm going to talk about those, what we heard and how we sort of used that feedback to come up with some of these options. So the first theme is one that we've talked a little bit about already, and that's that most HRC members were limited in the time outside of the monthly meeting that we already have scheduled. I would say that that's probably the biggest hurdle that we face. So in trying to think of a way to come up with a structure and frequency that works for a lot of people's busy schedules, we tried to think about how we could keep the time commitment and number of meetings to pretty much what we have as the current setup. And we also looked for ways that members who might have more time and who can raise their hand and volunteer to be able to do so, while still providing an opportunity for members who maybe have more limited time to still offer their experience, expertise, and network to the group. And the second theme that we heard, both at the September meeting and in the survey responses, reducing the number of meetings did seem like a barrier or a concern. So things that we heard were the varying schedule might be confusing, both to members of the commission or members of the public, and a concern about what would happen if a community event or concern happened in between, perhaps less frequent meetings. So when we were thinking about our options, we designed and addressed these concerns by looking to make the meetings predictable while still allowing time for those work groups to meet. So we thought that this also maybe offered an opportunity for HRC to maybe think about other ways to engage with the public beyond sort of the format that we're doing now in a formal government meeting. So maybe taking this opportunity to think about some new or additional ways of doing things. And finally, our last theme that we heard is that members just kind of wanted more information, more ideas about what a new meeting structure or format could look like. And so that's what led us to our presentation here today. So what I'm going to do is we've basically come up with 3 ideas. And you can like none of these ideas, you can like some pieces of one and not some of the other. And, you know, we can sort of take that feedback and maybe come back with a new proposal, or maybe one of these is really going to speak to you as members of a commission. So like it sort of outlines in the staff memo, we're not looking for any action items today or decisions to be made. It's really just an opportunity to present this information. We had wanted to do like another smaller work group setting, but unfortunately we also ran into time crunches with that, which is why we're doing it in this format as well. So that's the goal of our discussion today. So our first option, I've essentially titled it a self-organized work plan work group. So this is pretty similar to the first option that we have, or what we currently do now. So you would keep the same monthly meeting format for a 1-hour meeting, and then the work groups themselves would be responsible for holding an additional meeting outside of that regularly scheduled time. So during the meeting for the regularly scheduled monthly meeting, each work plan group would have about 5 minutes to talk through the work that it's done in between the meetings. And they can maybe use that space to advertise any relevant events or meetings that they have going on, or what they expect to do in between before the next meeting. So there's still a little bit of a shift in what the structure of the monthly meeting looks like. So the focus of the work groups is really going to be the work plan. And so we would really encourage and funnel things like informational presentations from community members or educational opportunities, gatherings, things like that, to be more towards the work group and keeping the HRC monthly meeting focused more on the work group reports, hearing from the public during public comment, and then sort of amending and approving any policy or action items that come out of the work group. So while it is kind of the same format and frequency that you're used to, it is a little bit of a tweak on sort of what each meeting is for. So that's the first option. I have one slide here that just lays out the frequency and the time commitment. So you can see here with this option that there's 2 meetings per month. So 1 for the business meeting and 1 for the work group, for a total time of 2 hours per month. So before I went on to the next option, I just wanted to stop here to see if there were any questions about like the format or the structure or what could be addressed in each meeting. If not, I'll go on. Okay. So our second option would be to incorporate the work plan groups into the HRC's monthly meeting. So again, in this case, the HRC would meet just like it does now, once a month as a full board. And the difference here is that we would extend the meeting time. So instead of being an hour-long meeting, it would be an hour and a half. So in addition to lengthening the meeting time, the structure would also be a little bit different. So if you think in terms of quarters or 3 months at a time, in 2 of those months, the HRC would use the hour and a half in the following way. There would be a 30-minute business meeting of the full board. And then after the business meeting adjourns, you could retire to the floor or perhaps another room in City Hall, whatever works best, and whenever we can actually do that again. You would meet as a work group. So if you were sort of on the commission about this time last year, You might sort of recall us using this structure a little bit when we were working on the work plan, where we sort of had a little bit of a lighter agenda for many of our business meetings, and we took the opportunity to use the rest of that hour on the floor to kind of sit in a circle and talk through some of the questions and options. So that's essentially the same concept for this structure. But instead of meeting as one group like we did as the commission, you would be in 3 separate smaller groups. And then for the 3rd month, so once a quarter, there wouldn't actually be any of those separate smaller work group meetings. You'd actually meet for the full hour and a half as the full board. And I'll talk about why in a second. So this is just a visualization, just to sort of help you recognize like what it could look like if you put it on a calendar. So you see there's the 30-minute business meeting followed by the 1-hour work plan groups in, for example, January and February. And then in March, you would meet as a full board. And then it would repeat throughout the year. So again, just this little visualization to help. There would be 1 meeting per month because the work plan groups are incorporated. But then the total time commitment per month would be an hour and a half. So what could you actually do in some of these meetings? So when we're talking about the 30-minute business meetings, it would be pretty much very similar to what we do now, just a little bit condensed. So there would be the public comment opportunity. That was something that commission members really still wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for throughout the year. You would have a space on the agenda for each work group to give about a 5-minute report on what they've done, what they're doing, and any action or business items that come out of those work groups, and then just the regular business of the HRC. And in your 1-hour work group meetings, these would be things that the commissioners would be responsible for preparing and setting the agenda. So again, this is sort of our preferred format and where you could invite speakers or other community members with the hope and intention that it's a little bit easier to connect with people and you can maybe have those more natural and fluid conversations and questions. Since this would be taking place right after the regular HRC meeting, I think it would be really great if if a work group has an agenda prepared the week before the meeting, and we could sort of start incorporating that into the packet that gets published and put out. So that is sort of what we envisioned for that little structure. And then once a quarter, when you come together as a full board for the longer meeting for an hour and a half, you would have many of the same components. There would be a public comment opportunity, the standing work group reports, about 5 minutes for each group, any action or business items that have come out of those groups for the work plan. And I know that many members on the HRC really do value hearing as a whole commission from many of the speakers and great people in our community. And so by lengthening this business meeting to an hour and a half once a quarter, we would have some more flexibility with having each work group, so one work group per quarter, inviting an outside speaker to address the entire commission. So maybe that's something that someone already came to that work group and talked about, or maybe it's related to an action item. The opportunities are pretty endless, but those are some examples. And if for some reason the meeting is a little bit shorter than an hour and a half, you could always retire to the floor for further coordination with your work group. So again, that's what I have for option 2. So before we proceed on to the last option, I just wanted to take a break again to see if there's questions for option 2. Right, so you would come here monthly. The only difference would be sometimes the business meeting would be half an hour, and sometimes it would be an hour and a half. Okay. So our third option would be for a quarterly business meeting, which is a little bit similar to sort of what we were first talking about in September, but we've maybe provided just a little bit more information about what that could look like to see if that would be something that folks would be interested. So this would be twice a quarter. There would be the focus on the work plan groups. And once a quarter would be the actual business meeting. So this option we have for the twice a quarter, we have two ways that the commissioners could think about it. So the work plan groups, they could either do some of the community sessions that we've been alluding to a little bit, which is actually going out and maybe holding a listening session at a community center or a library, or engaging, with a nonprofit volunteer group, or, something like that. Or they could also choose to maybe repurpose the time that's already booked on people's calendars, which is the third Thursday at noon slot, to meet as their work plan groups. Or they could do both. There would be a lot of flexibility with this option. And then once a quarter, the HRC would meet as a business, as a full board in a business meeting, much like it does now and what we've talked about with some of the other options. The only difference being is that this would only be once a quarter. And this is just an opportunity, again, to sort of show this visualization. Twice a quarter, you're meeting as the work plan group, and once a quarter, you're meeting as the full board, with about one meeting per month for 1 hour per month. And there we go. So this just provides a little bit more, some of the ideas. So for the community-focused work group meeting, you could talk about a specific item that's come up on your work plan. So for example, one of the Group 1 strategies is to talk about the discrimination complaint audit. So you could go out into the community and maybe schedule an informational meeting or listening session to hear about people's experiences with reporting discrimination. What barriers did they encounter, or hate crimes as an example. What was their experience with trying to report hate crimes? And then the second option for sort of the work groups would be, again, just to sort of focus on the work plan, which would be very similar to what we discussed in option 2. And when you come together as the full board, so that would be for 1 hour, and there would be the standing public comment opportunity that we're used to seeing, standing items for the work plan reports, about 5 minutes per group, and then any action or business items. So what we really tried to do with this option is really try to give commissioners something to think about for how there could still be community engagement, even if the board is only coming together in a formal setting once a quarter. So before I ask any feedback, this is just a little bit of a summary slide for the 3 options. So there's columns that just show the total number of meetings, the number of time that's sort of required per month, how often the full board would meet, and how often the work groups would be meeting, and then where are those work group meetings taking place. So with that, I would open it up to any comments or questions.
Yeah, thank you. I think you did a wonderful work. I like option 2. I don't know what about others, but I think you did a great job. Any question?
Yeah, Chairman, this is Barry. Thank you thank you for putting a lot of thought and work into these and sharing them so concretely and well to us. Something to chew on that I will do. A question on any of them. I've thought of this all along, and we've always been having our regular meetings the third Thursday at noon for a really long time. Was there any thought or discussion provided as far as changing the day or time of day for the meetings. I mean, I do really appreciate the intentionality. I really feel when you look at the purpose of the Fargo Human Relations Commission, that the intentionality of really going out in the community and talking to the community rather than sitting here and expecting them to come to talk to us is really important. But any discussion about looking at different formats even for the business meetings?
I guess I'll speak and I'll look back to Nicole to see if she has anything else to add. But, we do typically calendar those a year in advance, and we have not yet approved the schedule for 2021. So if there's questions about perhaps a better day or time for the business meeting, I do believe that there's still time to address. Oh, she's walking up here.
Thanks, Barry, for that question. And yeah, I think that day and time is flexible. Like Karin, I don't really have much more to add to what Karin said. If the group decides they'd like to meet at a different date and time, we would just need to coordinate that with our group up here. If you feel like you want to reformat that business meeting into a different layout and format, I think we have options to work with there too. So we would just need to dig in deeper with the subgroup.
So if there's no other questions at this time, I guess I would just put out, and you can either provide any responses that you have now or, as Barry said, chew on it a little bit. If there's maybe still concerns or fears that you have about either changing the format or changing the frequency, that maybe you'd like staff to consider more, or that you maybe like some deeper examples or more thorough examples.
Yeah, you can send it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Barry.
All righty.
I was just going to say, I'll speak for myself. Timelines are really important. So you might want to give us a input time frame here of a certain period of time.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we are a little bit up against 1 o'clock, but Chair, is there perhaps a possibility for folks to extend a few minutes? The second item for the staff that I have wouldn't take long.
Okay.
So I would just refer folks to the packet. So another item from the previous meeting was a review of the HRC liaison position draft statement. So if folks were to be able to take a look at that as well, and I can send this out in my email seeking feedback for the meeting structure questions as well. So if folks could just consider whether or not you agree with the draft vision statement, as well as what gaps in representation or voices do you see at the Human Relations Commission. So as it outlines in the staff memo, we do have quite a few opportunities coming up with both the increase in membership of the board, as well as this liaison discussion that's been ongoing the last couple of months, and also the work plan groups. How can we connect with other organizations or individuals in our community? So those would be the two questions that you're also going to see coming from me in your inbox in the next day or so here. Thank you.
Thank you. While you're there too, our next item here is the staff update.
Yes.
You got anything for us? I think item 2 and item 1 and 2.
Yes, I'm just going to go grab the paper copy. So in the staff report, I'm of course happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have. But we just really wanted to highlight numbers 1 and 2 in the staff report, which talk about sort of the local COVID response. So as you know, staff has been engaged in the quarantine support isolation, particularly for the Gladys Ray shelter. So there was the goal of getting that running by November 1st. And so that is available if people need it. And any resources that you see members in the community needing, whether that's food, housing assistance, anything like that, we're referring people to 211. That's sort of our clearinghouse for making sure that people can get connected to what they need. The second item is the rental assistance piece. So as we've talked about a few times, the city has used its Community Development Block Grant Funds, or CDBG, to sort of provide some increased capacity for rental assistance. And we've also now using some other funding sources as well. So we would highly encourage people, even if you have been denied for rental assistance in the past few months, to please try again, because the question protocols at 211 have changed in order to sort of reflect these new sort of funding sources. So please try again, even if you were previously denied. And I think Tia may have an item here.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just want to provide an update on number 3, the HUD, CDBG, and home funds. That is about a month out from the original December timeline. So you can expect an anticipated public comment period to be at some point in January. And I know a number of you and the organizations you work with have applied for community development block grant funds and home funds. And I just wanted to let you know that we'll be letting you know at the end of November or early December the results of those NOFA proposals. So thank you so much for being patient, and you will be hearing from us soon.
If there weren't any other questions, I think that was our staff update.
Any question? No? Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anyone have any announcement?
I want to congratulate Matur for his new position with the Moorhead Public Schools.
Thank you.
They made a great choice.
Thank you. I hope so.
Congratulations are in order.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner, I would, or Chairman, I would echo Carolyn's comment, and I also wanted to congratulate 2 commission members who completed really hard work, smart campaigns. Hamida and Letitia, congratulations on stepping up and being willing to run for legislature. Appreciate the work and getting messages out there in front of the public. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to Hamida and Leticia. You guys did a great campaign. And I think it's just the beginning. Don't stop there. Just keep doing it. You might win someday. Thank you. Is there any other business?
I don't know if it's a business, but you look good in that suit.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. You know, I have to, with my new job, I have to dress up like this. Some days I feel like I'm choking, but it's worth it. Okay, hearing none, this meeting of Human Relations Commission stand adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 17th at noon. See you all on that